Today, we're digging into a discovery that has seriously shaken up what we know about human origins. It's an incredible story about a 146,000-year-old skull that was hidden at the bottom of a well for decades, and when it finally came out, it challenged pretty much everything we thought we knew about where we come from.
So let's just start with this question, because it sounds like it's straight out of a movie. Could one single fossil, one that was hidden away for almost 100 years, actually rewrite our entire origin story? I know, it sounds pretty wild, but the evidence we're about to look at is, well, it's really, really compelling. All right, so here it is, the star of our show. A skull, at least 146,000 years old, that was found in Harbin, China. So what's the big deal? Well, you see, it just doesn't fit anywhere. It's a total outlier that scientists are having a really hard time placing on our standard human family tree.
And to deal with this puzzle, scientists did something pretty bold. They proposed a whole new human species for it. They're calling it Homo longi. Now that comes from Longjiang, the province where it was found. But Longjiang actually translates to Dragon River, which has given this incredible ancestor a way cooler nickname, the Dragon Man.
Okay, but before we get into all the nitty-gritty science, you have to hear the backstory of this skull. I mean, it is unbelievable. This isn't just some fossil dug out of the ground. It was the centerpiece of an 80-year-old secret, a story about war, fear, and a promise that was kept right up until the very end. I mean, just look at this timeline. The story starts way back in 1933. A Chinese laborer finds this amazing skull while building a bridge. But at the time, the area was under Japanese occupation. He was terrified it would be taken, so he made a split-second decision and hid it in his family's well. He kept that secret for over 80 years, only telling his grandchildren on his deathbed. Just imagine that. It's an absolutely incredible act of preservation. So to really understand why Dragon Man is such a bombshell, we need to do a super quick refresh on the story of human evolution. You know, the one we've all been taught for decades. And it's a story that, until now, seemed pretty straightforward. The classic story is this nice, clean line. You start with early ancestors like Australopithecus, messing around with simple stone tools. Then you get the more advanced Homo habilis. And after that, Homo erectus, the ones who mastered fire. And that path eventually leads to the Neanderthals and, well, us, Homo sapiens, with our big brains and complex societies. So the takeaway from that old model is simple, right? There's a clear rule. As time goes on, brains get bigger and our ancestors get smarter and more sophisticated. It's a nice, neat ladder of progress. But Dragon Man is about to throw a giant wrench into all of that. Okay, let's get back to the skull itself. Because when scientists finally got their hands on it, they found this totally bizarre mix of features, some that looked shockingly modern and others that looked incredibly ancient. And this is where things get really weird. The Dragon Man has a huge brain case. That's a modern feature. In fact, it's even bigger than a Neanderthal's brain case. And he would have stood about as tall as we do. But at the same time, the skull has these really primitive features, like the super heavy brow ridges and big teeth you'd expect to see on a much, much older ancestor like Homo erectus. It's this impossible combination of old and new, and it just completely shatters that clean, linear story of evolution. So, with this mystery on their hands, researchers compared the skull to 95 other known hominin fossils, and nothing, no match. So they turned to technology. They fed a 3D scan of the skull into an AI that analyzed thousands of different anatomical points. After running through millions of possible evolutionary trees, the AI's conclusion was just startling. Dragon Man didn't fit anywhere. It had to create a whole new branch on the family tree, just for him. And that quote really nails the problem, doesn't it? Dragon Man is like a puzzle piece from a completely different box. What this tells us is that human evolution wasn't a simple ladder at all. It was more like a messy, branching bush, with all these different human species, Neanderthals, Denisovans, and now Homo longi, all coexisting and maybe even interacting all over the world. So our family tree is more of a tangled mess than a straight line. Okay, cool, but why does any of this matter to you and me right now? Well, it turns out the story of our evolution is literally written in our bodies, and understanding it has a direct impact on our health today. Yeah, because the story of human evolution is really the story of our genes. When we track how ancient people adapted and changed over time, we can start to figure out the origins of the genetic conditions that affect billions of people around the world. Take a look at this number, 68%. What in the world could that be? Well, it's the percentage of the global population that shares a very common condition, one that has super deep roots in our evolution. That number, it represents global lactose intolerance. And as you can see here, it is not spread out evenly. In parts of Africa and Asia where dairy farming arrived much later, the rates are really high. But in Europe, where people have been farming dairy for a long, long time, a genetic mutation that lets adults digest milk became super common. Think about that. Our diet literally changed our DNA. And that's really the key here. Every new fossil we find, especially one like Dragon Man, gives us a much clearer picture of our evolutionary past. It lets us trace the genetic journey that shaped us, which helps us understand diseases and even develop new ways to treat them. The story of our ancestors is, in a very real way, the future of our health.
So let's just end on this thought. For 80 years, one of the most important human fossils ever found was just sitting at the bottom of a well. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other incredible secrets to the human story are still out there, just waiting to be found?